Have you ever spent months dreaming of the perfect wedding only to discover the man you love was planning a secret getaway with someone else? Imagine it unfolding like a slow-motion nightmare. Flowers ordered, dress fittings completed, guest list nailed down, and then a stray text message derails it all. I found myself repeating this question to anyone who would listen in the days after I learned the truth. My best friend, Clara, sat across from me in our favourite coffee shop, her eyes wide as I cradled my mug like a talisman. "He did what?" she gasped. I wanted to slam my cup on the table, but instead I whispered, "He booked the suite at La Mer Resort. For her." It felt like a cosmic joke. 10 years I'd planned this, scraped together every extra dollar for the venue deposit at Rosewood Gardens, mapped out menus with my mother, negotiated with the florist for peonies in May. Andrew and I had met in college, bonded over late-night essays and bad ramen, and by the time he proposed underneath the twinkling lights at my favourite bistro, I thought we were invincible. I'd hugged him, tears streaming, and pictured our reception under the willow tree, our first dance as husband and wife, our grandparents beaming at the front row. I never suspected that same proposal could mask betrayal. I learned the truth on a Tuesday. My schedule called for a midday break, so I ducked out of my marketing manager job and checked my phone in the car. There it was. "Hey love, I moved up my trip. La Mer suite booked. See you Friday." The message was from a number labelled Mum, but I knew that number. It was her number. My heart lurched, every memory twisting like a loose wire. I called him immediately. His ringtone was my ringtone. "Our Song" by Taylor Swift. When he answered, I could hear the ocean in the background, waves crashing lightly against a distant shore. "Hey, sweetie," he said, voice drenched in sunshine. "Who are you with?" I managed, voice shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. He laughed, the kind of laugh you give when you think someone's joking. Mom, you said I should take care of her since surgery." I blinked back tears. "Since when did she have surgery?" He cleared his throat. "Oh, since last week. Small issue. Didn't think it was a big deal." "But you didn't tell me," I pressed. He sighed. "Hey, it's just a quick trip. I'll be back before the weekend. No worries." I hung up and sat in the car, blinking at red lights I couldn't see through tears. Clara had taught me how to sit with pain, breathe into it, and wedge it out. So I inhaled, exhaled, and called her. "Don't come home," I told her when she answered on the second ring. "I need you here. I need you now." I could hear her shoes tapping as she ran. I turned my car around and drove back to my apartment, rehearsing a confrontation I feared I couldn't deliver. When I finally stepped inside, I found Andrew waiting on my couch, suitcase at his feet. He looked worn, travel-worn, sand in his hair. "Emma," he began, "you're home early." I dropped my bags, felt my legs go weak. "Who else is in the suite?" I asked, too low for him to hear. He stepped closer. "What? Why are you yelling?" His palm rose like a shield. I plucked the phone from my hand and showed him the message. He stared at it, eyes blank. Then he said, I didn't think it was a big deal." I pressed on. "Your quick trip was a getaway for two. You used my mother's number so I wouldn't find out." He looked betrayed, as if I were slandering him with false accusations. "Emma, please," he began, but I held up my hand. I left that night with bruised heart and bruised pride crashing at Clara's loft. While she made me tea, I Googled "Venue for Sale Atlanta" and clicked on a listing for Rosewood Gardens. The property manager's name glowed in my brain, Helene Matthews. It was absurd, borderline lunacy, buy the very venue I'd reserved for our wedding just to spite him. Yet as I read the listing, 8 acres, slate-roofed barn, event centre with capacity for 300, commercial kitchen, it felt destined. Asking price $2.8 million. My savings plus our wedding fund, plus equity on my condo. If I leveraged everything, I could have it. 2 days later, I had Helene on the phone. "Mrs. Matthews?" I said, voice steady. "I'm interested in Rosewood Gardens." She paused. It's been on the market for 6 months. Offers have stalled. I pressed on. I'd like to view it, possibly make an offer. She sighed. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., suit or casual? I laughed. Suit. The next morning, I arrived at the gravel drive and saw the gardens in full spring bloom. Tulips flaming in rows, wisteria draping the arbours, the barn bathed in sunlight. It dazzled. Helene greeted me with a handshake and guided me through the barns and stables, showing me the event hall outfitted with chandeliers, the bridal suite with French doors opening onto a rose garden, the groom's quarters with rustic stone fireplace. By the end, I'd conjured headlines: local entrepreneur renews historic venue, new life for Rosewood Gardens. We sat in her office, a cosy den filled with leather-bound books. She dialed her broker. She's a serious buyer, she told him. I slid onto the edge of the couch, adrenaline surging. By the time I left, I had negotiations in motion and an LOI en route. Over the next week, I met with my bank, signed refinancing documents for my condo, secured a small business loan, and even coaxed a silent partner, my mentor at the ad agency, to invest $500,000 in exchange for profit sharing. I worked late nights shredding old guest lists, sketching new floor plans, and assembling a press kit that highlighted my vision for the venue. Rosewood Revival, a space for weddings, community gatherings, and charitable fundraisers run by women and promising local scholarships. On Friday afternoon, my attorney handed me the finalized purchase and sale agreement, $2.6 million with a 60-day closing. I scribbled my signature, the pen sliding across the page like ink on a contract from fate. When closing day arrived, I stood outside the bank with trembling excitement. The lawyer slid the final deed across the mahogany table. "Congratulations," she said. "Rosewood Gardens is yours." I exhaled, the power of ownership warming my chest. In the trunk of my car, I'd stashed printed signs. Venue closed under new ownership. I drove straight to the gardens, my heart thumping like wedding bells that would never ring. The gravel drive was empty, wildflowers peeking through cracks. I stepped out, took a key from my purse, and unlocked the barned door. Inside, the scent of old oak and hay welcomed me. I set my signs along the road and posted the closures: the bridal suite locked, the event hall dark. Then I climbed the staircase to the balcony overlooking the rose maze and looked out at my kingdom of revenge. I imagined Andrew driving up in his rented car for the rehearsal dinner, only to see the gates shut, the phone number disconnected. That vision, his face contorted in disbelief, felt righteous. That evening, I met Clara back at her loft. She hugged me tight. "You did it," she whispered. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I did it! We toasted with wine from the old local vineyards, giggling through our relief and newfound freedom. I told her about the first person I'd fire, any wedding planner who called. Then I laughed, let them find a new venue. The next morning, I broke ground on a new chapter, leaving behind the betrayal that had threatened to swallow me. I arrived at Rosewood Gardens the morning after the closing signs went up and stood in the soft dawn light, arms wrapped around my coffee mug, staring at the empty ceremony lawn. A mist hovered over the rose beds, their petals pale as ghosts. For a moment, I let myself sink into the hush. No wedding music, no marching flower girls, no tuxedos milling about. Just me, the hum of early bees, and a determination so fierce it felt like a physical thing lodged in my chest. That was when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Clara. "Ready for day one of your reinvention?" I smiled, slipped on a pair of jeans, and unlocked the gate. Today wasn't about anger, it was about possibility. I had a simple plan: repurpose the venue into the Willow Collective, a non-profit community hub that would host classes, markets, and small-scale weddings for couples who'd been turned away by high costs. I'd honor the dreams I once held and give others a chance to dream. I unloaded my laptop bag, a stack of brochures, and a whiteboard onto the pavilion's stage. By 8:00 a.m., local vendors, bakers, potters, yoga instructors, had drifted in, coffee cups in hand, curious and eager. "Emma," called Marisol, her arms full of seed packets, "the Community Garden Committee is here." She'd rallied them: soil, wheelbarrows, raised beds. "We'll grow flowers for everyone's bouquets," she said. I hugged her, breathing in the faint scent of basil and thyme. Welcome to Rosewood Reborn. By midday, children trailed through the orchard planting lavender. Seniors gathered at folding tables inside the barn for watercolour lessons. Across the lawn, the town council's youth commission pitched bike helmet safety demos. Every face lit up at the sight of the property alive with action, no longer under lock and key, but pulsing with purpose. I took a break on the veranda, sipping lemonade as I looked out at the bustle. That was when I saw him. Andrew, hovering at the edge of the crowd, camera in hand. He wore a rumpled button-down shirt, looking both sheepish and determined. My heart constricted, but I forced myself to smile. He approached, voice awkward. "Emma, I saw it on the news. Rosewood's closed." I gestured to the herb garden. "It's open, for everyone." He swallowed. I wanted to apologize again. I know it's too late." I cut him off gently. "You had your chance." I nodded to the bustling scene. "This place belongs to them now." His shoulders sagged. I lost everything." He tucked a strand of hair behind his ear. "I'm sorry for breaking our plans, for hurting you." He looked around, as though searching for something familiar in this new reality. "It's beautiful." I let him watch in silence for a moment. Then I turned back to the children weaving lavender wreaths. "I hope you find something beautiful too," I said. "I'm glad you stopped it by Andrew, but it's time to go." He nodded, eyes rimmed red, and slipped away. No shouting, no drama, just the soft click of his camera strap as he faded into the crowd. Over the next month, the Willow Collective became a living testament to reinvention. We hosted Saturday night potluck dinners under the wisteria arbor, neighbours sharing recipes, laughter echoing through the garden. On Sundays, we ran tiny vows ceremonies, small elopements for couples who couldn't afford grand affairs. One Saturday, a same-sex couple exchanged roses in the barn. Another, an elderly widow renewed her vow to stay true to friendship with her lifelong pal. Each ceremony included our free lavender wreaths, the product of Marisol's green thumb, and every pair left with a ribbon-tied bouquet. The property's revenue model shifted too. Instead of charging brides thousands, we asked for donations on a sliding scale. The ceremonies paid our upkeep. Vendor rentals covered staffing. Grants from the local arts council funded the painting studio in the South Wing. We hired 3 part-time coordinators, 2 of whom were single mothers I'd met at my first open garden event. Watching them organise markets and classes, I felt a glow of pride that outshone any bridal spotlight. One Wednesday morning, I held a breakfast meeting in the barn with Clara and our board. Marisol, the garden lead, Priya, my incubator mentor, and Daniel, a local attorney volunteering for the non-profit. We poured coffee and nibbled scones as I pulled up the financials on my tablet. Revenue up 15% month over month. Event bookings outpaced our projections. New non-profit sponsors lined up. "We're thriving," I said, voice shaking with emotion. Marisol grinned, teary. "You turned heartbreak into hope." Daniel cleared his throat. "We have an offer." He slid a printed letter across the table, an email chain between our landlord and a wealthy developer proposing to buy the adjacent parcel for luxury condos. "They want expansion rights," he said. I frowned. "That would hem us in, shut out our access road." Priya tapped her fingers. "We should counter, buy the parcel ourselves, expand the gardens, add a communal kitchen." I nodded, thinking of all we'd built. "Let's do it." So we did. 2 weeks later, I signed the purchase for the neighbouring 5 acres, a meadow that had been slated for bricks and steel. Now it would become an orchard extension and event lawn. Vendors cheered, the press wrote headlines. Local non-profit grows community, literally. And Andrew, I never heard from him again. By fall, the Willow Collective's calendar was a patchwork of classes: ceramics, beekeeping, salsa dancing. And at the heart of it, renewed ceremonies, tiny vows, family reunions, community fundraisers flowed seamlessly. One crisp October afternoon, a bride in sneakers and a jack-o'-lantern bouquet said, "I do," in the orchard as fallen leaves fluttered. I handed her a lavender wreath and whispered, "Go write your own story." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the orchard line, Clara and I sat on the veranda with hot cider. "I owe you a wedding," I said, raising my mug. She laughed. "You gave everyone else theirs." I tilted my head, watching the last glow of light on the treetops. "I found a way to make a broken promise blossom." She nodded. "And you turned a closed venue into an open invitation." I leaned back, exhaling. The world was full of weddings I'd never have, but also full of lives my pain had helped nourish. The ghosts of my dreams had been replaced by living realities. Someone walking down the aisle, a kid picking lavender, a potter firing his first mug in the barn kiln. I closed my eyes, savouring the moment. Betrayal transmuted into community, loss morphed into legacy. And I knew that while I'd bought the venue to close it to him, I'd reopened it to everyone who dared to believe in second chances.